Are you struggling to have the same sense of optimism at the start of this year that you normally would have? Are your goals for 2021 drastically different and less ambitious than last year? Well, in this message, I'm going to explain why that's the case, and I'm also going to share with you what you can expect from FBC in 2021. I'm going to lay out the stall for who we are as a church and how you fit in and why I think you should be part of it. And I'm also going to share with you why I think 2021 will be one of the most formational years for us as a church family. Normally, the start of a new year brings with it optimism and dedication for all the changes we're going to make in the year ahead. New year, new you. You see, more people go to the gym and to church in January than at any other time in the year. We want to get in shape physically and spiritually. And as with most New Year's resolutions, this trend doesn't continue. By February, gym and church attendance is back to what it was before. This year feels different. It seems there isn't the same level of hope or optimism about what this new year will bring. We enter into 2021 under the same cloud that has hung over us for most of 2020. Whilst we know that the end of this pandemic is in sight, each day more and more people are being vaccinated. But we also know it'll be a long time till we see the effects of this on a national and even a global level. Our optimism took a big hit this week. Monday was the start of the working year for many of us. Mondays can often be challenging, but this was on another level. Boris appeared on our TV screens at 8 p.m. to announce a third national lockdown. Liverpool were playing Southampton at the same time. As I watched the football on my iPad, I listened to Boris announcing the closure of schools for at least the next 6 weeks. At this very point, Southampton scored against Liverpool. Needless to say, it wasn't the most hopeful or optimistic moment of my life. So how are you feeling at the start of 2021? What are your hopes and dreams for this year? What are your aspirations and how do they differ from last year? Now, I'm pretty sure none of us started 2020 with the hope of just being able to see family or friends. Our goals for last year didn't include staying in more. Our hopes were probably not focused on not catching coronavirus. But that's the reality for many of us for this year. The hopes and dreams we have for 2021 are about being able to meet up in person with the people we love. Some of us hope we can get back to work. Lots of us hope we can go back to our place of work so we don't have to operate out of the spare bedroom or dining room or landing or garage or toilet, wherever we've managed to set up our makeshift office. We hope we can stay safe, that we can follow the restrictions, but at the same time, have some sort of life. It reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, if you've studied sociology or something like that, chances are you've come across this. Abraham Maslow was a psychologist in the 20th century. His hierarchy of needs sets out the basic principles for human need. Maslow suggests that as human beings, we can't focus on one level of need until the previous level has been met. He sets out the hierarchy of needs in a triangle. At the bottom is physiological needs. This is the basic need of food and warmth and shelter. At the top of the triangle is self-actualization needs. This is about achieving our potential and setting personal goals. Perhaps in the past, you've set yourself the goal of learning a new hobby or a new language. Maybe you wanted to learn how to play an instrument or take up a new sport. These are all self-actualization needs, and the fact that you're able to set these goals shows that the other layers of the hierarchy of needs have been met for you. The physiological, safety, belonging, and esteem needs. But if you found someone who was homeless or someone living in a war zone and you asked them, what their goals were, they wouldn't say, "I'd quite like to learn how to play the trombone," or "I want to take up water polo," or "learn how to speak Klingon." Their goals would be around finding a home or being safe. Part of the reason why this new year feels different to the ones before is because some of our most basic needs are being threatened. For some of us, our financial security is at risk. For others, our physical or mental health is being challenged. Others of us are struggling with belonging. We feel disconnected and isolated. Many of us are struggling with esteem needs. We don't know if we're doing well in our jobs or in our roles as parents. So it's no wonder we don't have the same sense of excitement or optimism for the year ahead. But you know what? I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. Now, let me be clear. The negative effects from COVID are bad. Loss of life and security is not good. But this stripping away of everyday life brings with it an opportunity to rediscover what really is important. I stand at the beginning of 2021 full of hope and optimism for what this year will hold for us as a family at FBC. Normally, at this time of year, I'd have some dreams for what the year will hold, goals for what we can achieve as a church. I don't have that this year. Last year, I had an idea of how many new groups we could launch and how we could grow Sunday mornings. We had goals for how we could reach more young people and develop what we're doing with families. Now, I've got some idea for what we'll be doing up till Easter, but if I'm honest, I've no idea what will happen beyond then. Yet I'm full of hope. I'm full of excitement and optimism for what this year holds for us. I completely believe that 2021 will be one of the most formational years for us as a body that we have ever had. Now, a huge part of this hope and optimism is a recognition that our success as a church, whatever that means, is found in Jesus. It's dependent on God, not on us. The potential for us as a church is limited to the unlimited God. It's not dependent on me. It's not dependent on the staff team, on our volunteers. It's not dependent on how many people come to FBC or call FBC home. It's not dependent on our bank balance or our resources. Our potential is unlimited because it's dependent solely on God and the power of His Spirit at work in us. But, and there's always a but whilst our potential is unlimited, our ability to achieve that potential is limited. Our ability to achieve our God-given potential as a church is limited to our ability to trust Him and follow Him. A common theme in my school reports was could try harder or has more to offer. My teachers, or at least the ones who hadn't given up on me, would often comment that I could achieve more if I applied myself. They saw untapped and unfulfilled potential in me. Now, unfortunately for me, I left school not fulfilling that potential that I had. I don't want our report as a body to be the same. I don't want us to come to the end of this year having not achieved the things that God has for us. I don't want us to go through 2021 not realizing and stepping into the potential that God has for us as a church. Maslow's hierarchy of needs works for churches too. It's really difficult for us to set the same goals for this year as we've done for previous years, simply because some of the foundational needs are being threatened. We took a bunch of things for granted last year that we can't anymore. A huge focus of what we used to do was centered around in-person gathering. We can't do that at the moment. And whilst we hope that this will happen this year, we don't know how many people will come back. We don't know what impact last year has had on our congregation size or volunteer base. We don't know the impact it will have on our financial income for this year. Like most of us individually, FBC has a whole bunch of unknowns and things we are not certain of. I've said I don't know more in the last 9 months than I ever have before. What do we do when we don't know what to do? What do we do when we're drowning in the myriad of things we don't know? Well, it's simple. We focus on what we do know. That is why I believe 2021 is going to be one of the most formational years for us as a church, because it will require us to focus on what we do know or to refocus on it. 2021 will be a year where we start to rebuild upon the foundational principles for why we exist as a church. The what will come later, but for now, let's remind ourselves of the why. The why behind FBC, why we exist, is to help people find and follow Jesus. That's the simplest way we can express why we exist as a church. And I know it doesn't sound very inspiring. It's not like a bold mission to put someone on Mars before the end of the decade or to eradicate cancer in our lifetime. Those are bold and exciting goals. They're visions to get behind. But I also think our why is something worth getting excited about and something worth getting behind. Let me explain why. We exist to help people find and follow Jesus. We exist to help people discover a life-transforming relationship with Jesus and grow in what it means to be a follower of Him. We exist to help people discover that there's more to life than what they see, that there is hope, that there is love, that there is purpose and destiny, that in the midst of the pain and suffering, there is life and healing. every person who discovers or rediscovers this life-transforming relationship becomes a positive agent of change and hope for the world in which they live. One transformed life often results in a transformed family and a transformed community. We see these ripples of grace flowing throughout our world. We exist to help people discover Jesus, and in so, discover who they really are, to find their purpose and their place in the kingdom of God. We exist to help people become more like Jesus, to thrive in their faith, to allow their faith in Jesus to be the centerpiece upon which everything they do and everything they are is built. We exist to help people who are far from God draw near to him. We exist to partner with Jesus in his mission to seek and save the lost. And we unapologetically and unashamedly give a disproportionate amount of time and energy towards helping people who are exploring faith discover faith. Because, well, firstly, that's what Jesus did. And secondly, it was Jesus' model for helping those of us further along in our faith. Jesus was often questioned on why he gave so much time and attention to the people who were far from God. Now, one day, Jesus was having dinner at a guy's called Levi's house. Levi was a tax collector, which back then was not a job that a good person did. They were working for the enemies, for the Romans. And they also extorted their neighbours, charging them more tax and keeping the extra for themselves. When the religious people saw that Jesus was spending time with people like Levi, they complained. They muttered to each other about Jesus spending time with crooks and sinners. Jesus responded by saying, well, who needs a doctor? The healthy or the sick? I'm here inviting outsiders, not insiders. An invitation to a changed life, changed inside out. Jesus also told stories about a farmer who left the 99 sheep who were safe to go off and search for the one sheep that was lost. He was saying that he didn't come for the 99, but for the one. Now, in saying and doing these things, Jesus is not saying that people who are part of the kingdom of God are less important than those who are not. He isn't ascribing more value or more importance to people on the outside over those on the inside. And, if you want to know what Jesus meant by what Jesus said, look at what Jesus did. Jesus took a bunch of people who were on the outside and he brought them inside and he helped them help those on the outside. He came for those who he called the lost, but he took the people who were found and helped them help those who were lost. And in doing so, those who were found grew in their faith. That's a big part of Jesus' discipleship model, and that's why it's a big part of ours too. If you can measure faith in Jesus on a speedometer, our goal is to help people move the needle wherever that needle is at for them. But we recognise that a key way in which those of us who are more mature in our faith will continue to grow in our faith is by helping others discover Jesus and grow in him for themselves. That is the foundational principles on which we are built. It's why we exist. We don't exist to host Sunday services or to gather people in small groups. We don't exist to run a community centre or to provide clubs for young people. We don't exist to provide care to our community or opportunities for people to come together to worship. That's what we do. What we do is based on why we exist. What we do drastically changed in 2020, and I think it will be different in 2021 too. Because as we rebuild, we will focus what we do on why we exist. The world has changed. We have all changed. What worked then might not work now. The world in front of us is different to the world behind us. We stand at the beginning of this new year with a clear path ahead of us. An adventure lies ahead. I want to invite you to come on this adventure with us. I want to invite you to be part of this vision for 2021 to help us rebuild our church as we emerge out of this pandemic. But not to rebuild around what we did before, to rebuild around the why. And what we end up with might be exactly the same as what we did before, but we will know it's built upon the why. Jesus said, I will build my church and the gates of Hades will not stand against it. Jesus will build his church and nothing will stand in its way. I believe that. But I also believe that we can stand in the way of our church being part of his church. You see, when we want church to be the things we want it to be, when we want it to be for us, when we want it to have a different purpose and why from the why Jesus has for it, we limit its potential. We stand in the way of allowing our expression of the one church fulfilling its God-given potential. Now, a few years ago, FBC was a major driving force behind the setup of a new organisation called the Further Faster Network. We started with just 4 other like-minded churches who were passionate about the church being a place that unchurched people wanted to be part of. Last year, we added a further 7 churches. And this week, I received an email from one of the lead pastors from a new church in the network. It was a response to an email sent out to all 12 churches about what we've learned over the last year. Joel shares some of the challenges they'd discovered as a church. They weren't new because of 2020. It was just the events of last year highlighted the things that were already there. Joel had identified 4 habits or attitude that came to the fore for them last year. And I think we're all in danger of adopting some of these attitudes. Let me share them with you. The first is convenience over cost. Are you looking for something that fits your needs and slots into your way of wanting to do church rather than going out of your way? Is your attitude towards engaging with church like you engage with Netflix? You want it when you want it with the content that you want. The second is consumption over contribution. Is your attitude to church coming to receive or to give? Jesus said that he came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Do we have that same attitude when we come to be part of his body? Do we come to serve or to be served? To contribute or to consume? Now, I know it's a bit uncomfortable. There's 2 more. Just hang in there with me. The third area is comfort over cause. I'd rather stay in my comfort zone than step out into the unknown. I want church to be a place that helps me feel good about myself rather than it be a place that pushes me outwards. And the last area is self over community. I want my needs met rather than focusing on others. I'll engage with the people I know and like, but I don't want to be involved in the messy lives of other people in this community. These are some of the attitudes that Joel saw emerging in his church. Can you imagine how challenging it can be to support and serve a church where these attitudes are common? 2020 was a tough year for all of us. Joel gave me permission to share the words he shared with us, with you. He closed off his email by saying, on a personal note, this last year has been the toughest year ever in leadership. The discouragement, the pressure, the uncertainty, the criticism, the feelings of being a failure and being out of your depth have challenged us in new ways like never before. Being grafted into the Further Faster Network was like a lifeline when we were on the cusp of giving up. Thank you. That's a community that you are part of. Because you're part of FBC, you've helped us to create this network that is life-giving to a bunch of churches and their staff teams who really need support and encouragement during these challenging times. But it isn't just one way. We benefit hugely from it too. And these words and insights from Joel is really helpful for us if we're able to take an honest look at our attitude towards how we engage with our church. Are any of these attitudes true for you? No, be honest. Do you seek convenience over cost? Consumption over contribution? Is your comfort more important than the cause? And are you more focused on self than community? It's okay if you are. Be honest about it. Acknowledge it. And from there, start to push yourself into the other side. I would love for you to be part of what God is doing and going to do through FBC in 2021. I would love for you to be part of helping us help people find and follow Jesus. I would love for you to be part of helping people thrive in their faith, finding their purpose and meaning. And I would love for you to thrive in your faith. But as I said before, there's always a but. I want you to be part of FBC, but I want you to be part of FBC for the right reasons. Be part of FBC because you want to be part of this vision. Be part of FBC because you want your faith to help people find and follow Jesus. Be part of FBC because you want to be part of a community that seeks to have a tangible and positive impact on our community, demonstrating and declaring the good news of Jesus in a way that helps people take a step closer to him. Be part of FBC because you want to own your faith And you want to do that in the way that Jesus discipled his disciples, through helping them help others. Be part of FBC because you're willing to embrace the cost rather than seeking convenience. Be part of FBC because you want to contribute towards the mission rather than sit back and consume. Be part of FBC because you're passionate about the cause and you're willing to step out of your comfort zones to see it fulfilled. Be part of FBC because you want to be an active part of this community. If our why doesn't line up with your why, if you're looking for convenience, for something you can consume, if your comfort is more important than the cause, and if self is more important than the community, then I worry that this year will be a frustrating one for you. FBC will not be able to give you what you're looking for. But if you're willing to lean in, to come on this journey with us, to roll up your sleeves and get stuck in, to focus on the why, then I'm sure the needle of your faith will move forward. If you engage with the mission that Jesus has laid before us, if you help us rebuild our church that seeks to help people find and follow Jesus, giving a disproportionate amount of attention to those people who are not part of the kingdom of God, if you do that, your faith will grow. You will see God at work in you and through you. You will end this year closer to God with a greater sense of fulfillment and purpose than you started it with. So come with us.